Good morning from San Marcos, Texas. This is Words to Live By, and I'm Pastor Brent Campus. And I'd like to welcome you to another Saturday lesson um, here on November 20th of 2021. What a great day it is. We're heading into what I call the trifecta of holidays. We have Thanksgiving this week, and then we'll have in a few weeks Christmas, and then we'll walk right into 2022. What a crazy world we live in. How fast 2021 went by. But I know God has big, big plans for 2022. And so, we just thank God for everything that he's doing in our nation. Well, those of you that are traveling, please be safe. I did something. I forget that for some reason, the streaming service that I go through, Facebook will not allow them, even though I can show stuff, it will not allow me to post. So I listed some prayer requests out here. I'm going to go ahead and read them through to you so that you can continue to pray for the following. My friends Marlon and Naomi Schrock, their daughter was diagnosed with cancer, and so she's going through cancer chemotherapy treatments right now. So keep their family in your prayer. I have a very good friend of mine whose mother was diagnosed with stage 4, I believe it's lung cancer. And so just keep her in your prayers. Continue to pray for the My 360 ministry with Pastor Daryl and Pauline. Continue to pray for Jody's brother and family. It was great being able to see some of the photos last week on Facebook. So thank you for sharing it, Jody. Continue to pray for Community Church and the New Destiny Ministry in Idaho Falls, Idaho. That was the place that I went a few weeks back, and that ministry is thriving. And we know that there are good things, big things going to happen out of Idaho Falls. And so we continue just to pray for them. That is Pastor Anthony and Pastor Laura out of Idaho Falls. And then there's several pastors that are with them that are joining together through the New Destiny Ministry, doing great works. Pray for all those traveling this week. Just, ask God to, be with those that are traveling. It's going to be crazy, especially with all the things that have been happening. And then, of course, continue to pray for our nation and God's church. In this ministry, one thing I want to do is I want to remind everyone that we are in a battle. And the reason why I bring the things to the forefront is because in battle, we have to know what we're headed into. But prayer is so utterly important. And that's why Paul says we should have that attitude of prayer. We should always be in prayer. That's why he says, pray without ceasing. We should have an atmosphere around us that we can constantly draw into the Spirit of God. And if there's one thing that I would ask for everyone is just to continually pray for God to draw us into that great awakening. I believe it's coming. I believe that we're at the forefront of something great going to happen into the United States of America. Don't ever give up. And just know that, we have a great fight going to come in the forefront. So today's lesson is going to be the start of a 10-part series. Now, I know that sounds like there's a lot, but what I want you to know is this is a 10-part series about battle. about getting us ready for the fight that we wage into. And so, what we really want to do is we want to understand where we're going and who we're fighting up against, the way that we need to fight this battle. And so I know that sounds like a lot, 10 weeks. We will take a break probably, well, maybe not. No, we'll just continue to flow. I'll see what God says. But what I want us to do is walk right into the new year and take some time to know that fiscal year 22 or fiscal year 22, there's my finance side, calendar year 2022 is right around the corner. I'd like to welcome my friend Michelle. It's good to have you on here. And Kate, as always, it's great seeing you. Laura, Jody, and all those that are with me, thank you so much for joining on this morning. And we're going to jump right into this. So we're going to have several passages, and I'll put them up here as we go into them. But the premise behind this series, first of all, this is one of the messages that God brought out for the revival I was at. But when I was preparing for it, I knew it was bigger than just one message. And, whenever you do a message, you know that you only have, a short period of time to get everything out there. And so what I want to do is I want to take the items from that message and I'm going to expound upon them because I want us to make them relevant for our day-to-day living in a way where you can take these and you can say, oh man, this is important. I need to really study these. So my message was called Ready to Rumble. We are in a battle. Are you ready? And so really what I want us to understand is, even after last week, pouring right into this, is are we ready? And we have to get to a place in our life where we have to look at ourselves. And like I said, we are one big church, but we independently have to understand that there's a great burden out there, and we have to be ready to be able to help all of those around us. And so today's message is know who you are fighting. Know who you are fighting. And in 1 Samuel, we're going to look right at this. David walked into a battle that was raging between the children of Israel and the Philistines. And there was a huge enemy. We know the story about David and Goliath. But, there's so much more behind this that God didn't just want to bring it out as being a story of, David fighting Goliath and the start of his. He wanted us to see that this is a daily battle that we all are facing. And the Bible is not just a book of stories. It is a book of life learning experiences to help us as the church stay strong. It's not do it yourself, because we can't do it ourselves. This is all about us trusting in God to get through the amount of time we have on this earth. And so when we look at 1 Samuel chapter 17, we're going to look at what was David fighting. And so we'll take a look at this. So 1 Samuel 17, starting verse 4. Then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out of the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall. Could you imagine that? Somebody over 9 feet. Now I'm 6'4". And that's 3 foot taller than I am. So some of you that have been around me, I'm not a giant. As a matter of fact, if I'm standing on a football field, in a lot of cases, I'm one of the smaller looking dudes. You have guys that are 6'8", 6'9", but this guy was 9 feet tall. He wore a bronze helmet, and his bronze coat of mail weighed 125 pounds. Now think about that. When I was working out, I would warm up with 135 pounds, and that was a lot of weight. But he was weighing just his bronze helmet and his coat, his armor was 125 pounds. He also wore a bronze leg armor, and he carried a bronze javelin on his shoulder. The shaft of his spear was as heavy and thick as a weaver's beam, tipped with an iron spearhead that weighed 15 pounds. So the spearhead was 15 pounds. His armor bearer walked ahead of him carrying a shield. So this was the enemy that David was fighting against. So he was a big guy. He was a big dude. And David was a smaller dude. And all of the children of Israel, all they kept on looking at was the size of that enemy. And in doing so, it drew them into a doubt of their victory. But as we go through this series, you're going to see that it wasn't just that. It was the lack of faith that they had in trusting in God, because their eyes weren't focused on the right things. So you say, well, then BK, what exactly are we going to talk about here? Well, I want you to see that, because that was a big enemy. The Philistines had been a constant thorn in the children of Israel for a long time. And this guy had been a major part of that. And so we have to look at our own selves and go, what and how do we fight, and who are we fighting against? Well, the first thing I want you to understand is that we're not fighting a person. We're fighting our number one enemy, and his name is Lucifer, or Satan, or the devil, El Diablo. And so what I want you to understand is that the enemy that we're fighting against, he's been given authority to be a part of this world for a time, to be able to see what he can do. And so I want to take us to the book of Job, because I want us to see the enemy that you're fighting. I want you to take a glimpse of this. And so, like, when I would prepare to go into the battle, over in the desert, and I deploy, we'd have to go to these special briefings, and they would lie out some of the enemies that we would be going into, even though I wasn't a soldier, as in, artillery or infantry. We were told about the enemies that were fighting against us. And we would be told, hey, these are their strengths, here's their weaknesses. And so what I want to do today is I want you to see who you're fighting against. The enemy is very, very powerful. First of all, I want you to understand he is very powerful. He's not as powerful as God, but he is very powerful. And so don't ever stand back on your laurels and go, man, I've been a Christian, I know the Bible. Well, guess what? The enemy knows the Bible too. Matter of fact, it says that all of the devil and his legions, they know the Bible as well. And so don't just stand back on your laurels and say, oh, I've got this. Now, we should stand strong, but don't become so complacent that you think, oh man, he can't touch me. That's when you get in trouble. That's when you let your guard down, and the next thing you know, you're falling into a problem. So let's go to the book of Job. I want to take you to the book of Job, chapter 1, and we're going to look at 6 through 12. I want you to understand what the enemy's doing and what God allows him to do. So we look at Job chapter 1, starting in verse 6. One day the members of the heavenly court came to present themselves before the Lord, and the accuser, Satan, came with them. I want you to see that right there. So the enemy is in direct conversation with God. He comes up, he has conversations. He's part of that conversation with God. He's having words, and God's like, okay, I'm going to give you some moments. I can understand. It would probably be like when you have somebody that you just can't stand, and he comes walking in, and you're like, oh man. So God allows the devil to come up, and he says, where have you come from? This is what the Lord has to say. Where'd you come from? What are you doing? Then the Lord asked Satan, have you noted, or I'm sorry, Satan answered the Lord, I have been patrolling the earth, watching everything that's going on. So I want you to see that. I want you to picture this. So here's Satan. He's saying, hey, I'm going all over the world. I'm patrolling it. I'm seeing what I can see. and I want to see what damage I can bring before you close me down. See, don't think that the enemy doesn't know. The enemy knows, hey, his time is numbered. His days are numbered. He's going to do whatever he can in the short amount of time that he has. Then the Lord asked Satan, have you noticed my servant Job? He is the finest man in all the earth. He is blameless, a man of complete integrity. He fears God and stays away from evil. So God knows our heart. He's telling Satan, hey, you know what? You've been walking around and you've been doing all these things. And you have to understand, Job is one of the oldest books in the Bible. And Job was around before, the law, any of the things that would keep him in close proximity to God. But Job did it because he loved God. There was nothing that was holding him back from loving God. He wanted his life to be a part of the unknown God. That's what they would have called God back then. So then Satan replied to the Lord, yes, but Job has good reason to fear God. You have always put a wall of protection around him and his home and his property. You have made him prosper in everything he does. Look how rich he is. So Satan's saying, hey, you know what? The only reason he's loving you is because you've given him everything that he needs. Why would he have any reason not to love you? God says to him, Satan says to God, but reach out and take away everything he has, and he will surely curse your face. So Satan's just saying, hey, you know what? If you were to take all of that away, he would curse your face. He would denounce you, because he would then have nothing to be thankful for. He would no longer love you as what you think he loves you as. So God tells him, all right, you may test him. The Lord said to Satan, do whatever you want with everything he possesses, but don't harm him physically. So Satan left the Lord's presence. Now, I'm not going to go into that whole story. What I'll tell you is that Satan does just that. He basically takes away everything except for his wife, and he destroys everything. So the battle that Job was in was not with any enemy that was on earth. He was literally in battle with our enemy. And so what I want you to see here is nothing changes. The enemy still travels up to God and has these conversations. And, when I'm talking to folks, I remember counseling with a couple several years back, and they were going through some stuff. And I looked at them and I said, let's look at Job's life. And I understand this is a tough time, but this means that there's a season that you're in right now, and God is allowing your testing to take you to a whole new level. And so what I want you to see here is that your enemy is not the person or the thing that you're fighting against right now. This fight that you're in is not against, someone physical. And you say, well, how do you know that, Pastor BK? Go to Ephesians chapter 6:12. Go to Ephesians 6:12. And now I use this verse a lot, but it's something that you have to remind yourself of. It says, for we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. I want you to see this. So many times we're like, man, I can't stand this person. He's doing this. She's doing that. Making my life a living, Hades. And I just can't stand it. I can't stand that person. But we have to remember, that person is not doing these things on their own. They could be Christians, but the enemy knows how to bring in, certain things to start to destroy your peace and your joy, your confidence. Don't just think that, I'm a Christian, so I can't be attacked. No, you're going to be attacked. And it could be the person or the people that are around you the most that are bringing the most harm. That's why I've always told you, you know what? Take an inventory of your life and see the people that truly are trying to help you, and those that aren't. Evaluate, do they really need to be a part of your life? I'm not saying to banish people. What I'm saying is remove them from your inner circle where you're receiving your strength, your encouragement. We don't need people in our life that are negative. Man, there's certain times you'll be talking to somebody, you're like, man, is anything good in your life? You know, is that all you talk about is the bad? I mean, if people that's all they focus on, then you know what? You might want to take a look in the mirror and see, why is all this happening? We've already seen that, the enemy wants to come in and he's gonna draw certain things. And so the battle that we're fighting in, we have to figure out, what's drawing this battle. Why is this happening? When we go to war, we're looking at, what are we fighting for? That's why there's a lot of things that happen, in the middle of, all these wars that we enter into as a military force within the United States. We're like, why are we fighting this? What is the main reason? If the main reason is to protect our borders, and that's why you have to understand, when we initially went to fight in Afghanistan, in Iraq, it was to eliminate enemies that could come into our nation. And now we're just, opening our gates and saying, you know what, everybody come on in. You know what, I know we went and fought you because we didn't want any more 9/11s or any more Pearl Harbors, but let's come on in. Well, see, that's what happens in our own life. We get saved. We receive this great gift from God. And the next thing you know, we're saying, hey, you know what? I can go ahead and let this in my life, or I can let this person in my life. That's this isn't going to hurt me. That's why I say, know who your enemy is. When we talk about addictions, and we talk about the fact that, there's certain things that will trigger reactions in our life. All of us have different things we fight against. And I tell you, every week, we all have different demons that we're fighting. And when I say that, I'm not being facetious. I'm saying it because, I don't fight the same battles as some of you do. But the battles that I fight aren't any less or greater damaging than the ones that you're fighting. And that's why we have to be in constant prayer for each other, saying, you know what, strengthen my brothers and sisters around the world, because the enemy is trying to destroy us from within. That's why when we talk about the church, I get so infuriated, because I see the things that are happening within the church, not within our nation. Our nation is only a reflection of what's going on in the American church. You have to understand this. And I'm not saying that, that our nation is connected, but truly it is. This is the reason why our forefathers did what they did. They wanted our nation, a nation under God. Listen to what I'm saying. No other nation in the world except for Israel has ever proclaimed that this nation, the United States of America, is a nation that is under one God, and his name is Jehovah. And he is the unknown God, as what the other worlds know of him as. It's not all these other gods that come in to try to say, hey, this is what you can do for me. It's not that. Our nation was founded under the principle that, we have one God, and he's going to make us great. Not because he wants us to be wealthy and strong and powerful for nothing. What our job is to be able to go and be a witness to the rest of the world. He knew, hey, when I build this nation is going to be able to do this, and it's going to be able to do that. We have to understand that. And that's why we have to understand that we're not fighting an enemy that is in pure flesh. The enemy is the enemy. And we have to understand that. And I want you to understand that this enemy is not weak, but he also isn't the most powerful. If you go to 1 Peter 5:8, 1 Peter 5:8, and we're going to read also the 9a, we'll go 5:8 through 9a. It says, stay alert. Watch out for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Stand firm against him and be strong in your faith. Now, I think that it's so great that the person that wrote that was Peter, because we know his story. We know what struggles he had, even though he spent every waking moment for 3 years with Jesus Christ. When the battle was raging at the hottest point, he failed. And he let go of the guard that he had. The crazy thing is, just like we get warnings, Peter had been told, you're going to betray me. Not just once, not just twice, but 3 times. And in the hottest point of the battle, he failed. And I want you to understand that Peter, he was broken at that moment. He was broken because he realized, what did I just do? And so now he's telling us, be aware, stay alert, because this enemy, he's going to get you at the point of conflict when you're going to least expect him. How many times are we in battle with something or someone and we just can't understand it? You know, this is why I tell people, don't be praying for patience, because when you're praying for patience, the enemy that's going to come in is going to be that person that person normally that's going to draw you in and make you patient. But that's not an easy fight. You know, patience is something that is learned. You're going to learn how to be patient. You're going to learn how to stand fast and look around you and see your surroundings and understand that, you know what, I'm not going to do this right now. I'm going to wait. That's why, you know, people say, well, like when we say wait on the Lord, you know, wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. Let the Lord tell you when it's time. You know, there was multiple times in battle when God would tell them, don't do it now. Don't do it now. Wait until I tell you. Look at Jericho. God said, hey, you know what? I'm not going to have you go right now. But when you do, this is how I want you to do it. And people would look at that and go, this is crazy. Why are we doing it this way? Well, God had a plan. God had a plan. And his plan has to be walked out. Some of us, when we're in battle, we have things that we're fighting and we're trying to figure out, why is it that this is what I keep fighting? Folks, I'm going to tell you that the main reason why we fail at our battles, the war's not over. We might lose some battles, but the war is still raging. And so even though there's a war, or even though we might fail at a battle, we get back up and we go at it again. We don't just stay down, because that's when you truly fail. That's when you truly say, I've lost. And you're not lost, because see, the strength of God is there to bring you in. I don't want to go into that. I just want you to see this, because I want you to know who you're up against. And you're only going to be, you are the one that's going to know who you're up against. Some of you might be fighting addictions. All of us have some sort of addiction, but some of you might be fighting addictions that are keeping you from being the person that you can possibly be. Because it might be a drug addiction, it might be an alcohol addiction, it might be a pornography addiction, it might be a gambling addiction. I mean, you name it. It could be a eating addiction. Now, I will tell you that there's some addictions that happen because we allow them to happen and we just don't have any self-control. But the reason why we don't have any self-control is because something triggers us. You know, it's like when you're losing weight and you're doing really, really good, and then all of a sudden you have a bad day. And so what's the first thing you want to go to? You want to go to food. When you're trying to be healthy, you're going to go to something that brings you comfort. because you want something that you can trust in, that's going to try to bring you some satisfaction, and that's why it'll make you happy for a moment, but then it's not there, and then you're going right back at it again. I know in my own life there are things that I have to be very careful with, and I have to be protected. I have to understand that there's things that trigger certain reactions in my own life. I'm a very, how can I put this? I don't want to say, I can be a very aggressive person in everything that I do. So I have to be very careful not to place expectations on other people because I would do it a certain way. I have to learn to not say, hey, I'm doing it this way, you better do it this way. Because what happens is then we lose sight on the fact that they might have something else that's going on in their life. I look at even some of the battles I'm in right now. I look at the people that I'm battling against. It's not them. I've counseled with a lot of people, and what I've identified in those times of counseling is it's never the thing that they're coming to see me about that's the problem. There's something else that's deep rooted that they're looking at, and they're saying, well, I don't understand why this is happening in my life. Well, because there's something else that has been deep rooted, and so that is what's triggering the episodes going on right now. Nobody just wakes up one day and says, well, you know what, I think I'm going to become a meth addict, or I'm going to become a cocaine addict, or I'm going to start drinking till I can't think. Nobody wakes up just thinking that. Something has happened that has made them feel vulnerable enough that becomes their lifeline. And that's why I've become very, very upset with Christians when we're so eager to judge someone because of something that's going on in somebody else's life, and we don't think about, why is this going on? Why is this person doing this? It wasn't like them a few years back. And we jump to this conclusion that, that person's evil. That person is our enemy, when we should be going, why? That's why God says, and we don't understand this to the fullest extent, but God says, love your enemies. Why would we love our enemies, the ones that are coming against us? Because there's something else that's bringing them to that place. You think about your own self, because you know yourself more than anybody else does. And you know what? We lie about ourselves. We hide things because we don't want other people to see them, because, if they knew about this, man, I would be the next person that they're talking about. But we don't like bringing out that stuff because our enemies that are fighting within us, man, some of them are scary. I'm going to tell you some of the battles that I have in my own mind that I go through. And in today's climate, I want to tell you that in today's climate, man, we can get caught up. I was just talking with someone yesterday about what's going on in our nation, about the diversity. Here's the thing. I have never truly been one of those people that want to look at a person's color or their ethnicity or any of those things, because that doesn't matter to me. I don't really care about that. What I care about is the way that they are with our nation, or within your community. What do they bring? I love going into prisons and working with those that have done something that caught them up, and now they're in a place where they're supposed to be rehabilitated. See, our penal systems were just that. They were intended because they lost to their enemy. You know what? We look at someone and we go, why are all these people in prison? Well, because they've lost their battle. They didn't realize the enemy that they were fighting against. Somebody that steals, they aren't stealing just because they want to steal. It's because they've lost something in their own self. They're saying, hey, I'm more important than you, and so I'm going to take what you have because I deserve it more than you do. I mean, that's a thought process. And what happens is they get caught and they get thrown in prison. That's the consequence of their thought process. And so their enemy was them thinking that what they wanted was this, and they were going to take it. They didn't realize, you know what? Why am I doing this? Why? And I know this sounds very, this is getting a little bit deep, but I want you to understand something. We all go through these thought processes, and some of us have come closer to going to prison than others. I can remember, times where I would get into fights, and that anger that's inside of you, you start beating somebody up. You have to stop. And there was times where people would have to pull me off of someone because I'm wailing on somebody, and you lose control. Not everybody that's in prison that's killed someone did it because they intentionally wanted to, but because of emotions, because of adrenaline. It happens. But see, we sit there and we want to judge people about what they've done. But most of us, we've done it as well. We've just done it in our minds. There have been people that I've heard them talk to other people or about other people, and they're killing them. They are truly destroying these people by their mouth. And we talk about the tongue, that it brings life or death, and that's truth. Some of the things that we say to other people, man, we should be very careful because the things that we say or the things that we draw into someone, that's going to last. That can last a lifetime in some people. I talk about things that were said into me, and I don't blame my dad anymore. I don't. And I tell you these stories not to bring shame upon my father, because I love my father. And, he was only doing what he knew. But some of the things he would say to me, it did something in my own life to where I did the same exact thing to my kids. I was talking to someone last Saturday, and I was telling them that my oldest son, Brandon, when he was a little boy, when I say little, he was probably like 10 or 11, he was big into skateboarding, and he was actually pretty good. And I remember him coming in one time, and he was like, "Dad, I'm going to be a professional skateboarder, just like Tony Hawk's." And I was like, you know what? You need to focus more upon your education and do something with your life. Don't be having these dreams that you're going to be famous in a skateboarding situation. I didn't realize at the moment what I had done. Now, I tell you this because I'm reminded of this constantly about things that I had said to my own children that I realized I can never take those back. Those were swords that were thrown to my kids, that I did it. I was the enemy. Take that back. I was used by the enemy to bring my kids to a certain place in their life. Things that I've said to my daughter. Man, I'll tell you right now, some of the things that I've said to my daughter, I will sit in my quiet time and the enemy will come against me because he'll be like, "You remember when you said this? You remember when you did this? You remember?" And I have to stop and I say, "Father, forgive me because I did not want to say those things." Folks, I want you to understand that the enemy is sly. And that's why Peter tells us, stay alert. I have to be very careful myself because I can become emotional. I have people in my life that I truly love, and when I see them hurting, I become emotional. I'll say things that I don't mean. But we do it because the enemy allows it to happen. Some of you right now might be thinking, "Man, I didn't realize that could have been me. This could have been me." I think of times, I'm not going to mention their name, but I was having conversations with a certain person. We were talking, and it would get frustrating because I'm sitting there thinking, "Man, why can't they see this? Why can't they understand this?" I didn't realize all the background stories that were going on in this person's life. And sometimes we get so rushed because we're busy, 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 but we don't really want to stand and focus on what's going on and truly be that friend. And that's why, Jesus says, "I'm a friend like no other." Jesus doesn't rush you. He's like, you know what, Brent? Let's talk about that. And you know what? He doesn't set a little time limit. He doesn't sit there and go, okay, you have this amount of time and then I've got to go. He says, you know what? Come to me. Come to me and I'll listen to you. And then he's going to provide wisdom. He's going to be like, Brent, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? You remember this time in your life? You remember these things that were happening and all of a sudden, boom. Let's go back and we can't remove it, but let's eliminate the damage that did. And let's put something else in there. I tell folks, don't just clean your closet and leave it empty, because sooner than later it's going to get cluttered with other stuff. But what you do is you empty it and then you start replacing it with things. And that's why, I loved it when Daryl and I would have conversations and we would talk about messages, and he brought something up one time and I loved it when he was talking about addiction, and it could be anything. At that moment we were talking about porn addiction, because a lot of men, they don't realize that that's an addictive. It's not because of the sex that you're going through, but it's because of it's a way to be in control. It's something that will help you. You think, well, you know what, I'm going to do it because I'm in control of this. But what it's doing is it's creating damage. It's damaging the relationships you're in. But anyways, I say this because a lot of times people say, well, if I just need to remove porn. No, what you need to do is find something that's going to replace it. You need to find something that's going to not just remove it, but you're going to fill it with something that's positive. That's why I say, when you have people in your life that just aren't helping you, you can't just eliminate things and have a void. You have to fill it with something that's a positive. And I'm not saying go out and find another friend. What I'm saying is you find something that's going to help you, because the main reason we have people in our life is not really for support. It's to agree with us. That's why you try to find people all the time that are similar in your likes, because you're like, hey, I'm going through this. And they're like, oh, yeah, I know, man, you keep doing that. You know what? It's not a problem. That's why we have to be very careful of the people that we have in our life. It's easy to have people in your life that keep just boasting you up, saying, hey, you know what? You're not doing anything wrong. I've always told people when they're in a marriage, don't go to people that are going to talk to you about divorce. Talk to them about, go to people that are going to help you understand that, look at the full situation. Lisa and I have been married for, it's going on 30. Well, we've been together for almost 34 years. We'll hit 33 years in February. But, in those 33 years, we've had times where it was like, man, we just want to call it quits. This is getting too tough. But what we do is I allow the enemy to start roaming in there, and then I can do all kinds of things. And then that doesn't satisfy the situation. What I have to do is just stop. And I go to the Lord and I say, God, just cleanse this out of my mind. Don't allow the circumstances of right now determine what's going to happen for the rest of my life. Because I'll tell you, can I be very honest with you just for a moment? I think about marriage, and I love my wife. I love Lisa, and I will never, and I say this as integrable as I can, I will never leave her. And I'm praying that she never leaves me. But there are times where the enemy will come in and he'll go, why do you need to be married? You can do everything that she's doing. You know how to clean, you know how to cook, you know how to go to the store, you know how to do all these things. Why do you have to have a wife? Why do you need that? Why? All she does is bring you grief at times. She doesn't respect you like she should. She doesn't do this. And you start thinking about those things, you start going, man, maybe that's truth. And then all of a sudden you'll hear this still small voice and say, that is not what I'm talking about. And next thing you know, you'll think about some good things that are going on. It's funny how the enemy will come in and bring the things that are, wanting you to leave. But then the Holy Spirit will come in and remind you, look who you're married to. When I think about times that Lisa and I have conversations, and then I go back and I go, why would I say it like that? Why would I say something like this, or why would I do this like this? I don't understand what's going on inside of her. But when you stop and think about it, that's why we've done the things we've done. That's why we do. I've learned to love like home shows and cooking shows. It's not that I would want to do it. I'd like to watch comedies and watch drama shows. But I've learned to just love what Lisa loves. And I really have. And I say that with integrity by saying, you know what, I've learned to love watching some of these shows. We started watching this new show on Discovery Plus called Homes with History. It was a one season show right now, but I'll tell you what, I loved it because it talked about homes that these people found up in Massachusetts that were built before the United States of America was the United States of America. Some of these homes were built in the 1600s. So when when the pilgrims first were coming over, and when the folks were coming over here to, do things for the king, and then they realized, you know what, we don't want to be a part of that world anymore. And I've started just looking at these things and going, you know what, it isn't about the show. It's about just spending time with my wife. It isn't about, and I'm going to say this, and don't take this wrong, but it's not about sex anymore. I always thought as a young guy, that is it. You get married and that's what life is. You have to have that in your life. And I'm not saying we don't, or we shouldn't have intimacy in that magnitude with our spouse, but it should be a special moment. It shouldn't just be, it becomes something relevant. And that's why it's so important for people to understand that marriage is sacred. And that's why people that, all they do is they go from club to club, or they live together, they don't understand that relationship. There's no commitment there. And some people say, well, I've been, it's statute, we've been married because we're common law now. No, it ain't. You know what? There's no such thing in the eyes of God. There's no such thing as common law marriage. It's either you are or you aren't. Because even in common law marriage, you can walk away. Yeah, there might be some consequences because, the husband, the man of that group or whatever might have to, pay some money or something. But to me, it isn't about money. It's about the livelihood. I've helped people walk through horrible divorces. And it's always, it's bitter at the end because of things. It's bitter because, this person took this away from me. And I hate that. You know what? I don't have time, but it's not that person that's doing it. It's the enemy. The enemy doesn't want any of us to have peace. The enemy doesn't want us to have joy. The enemy wants to keep you so riled up that all you keep on doing is living in emotion. And you can't do that. Today's lesson is all about know who you're fighting against. Take an inventory of the things that you keep battling and think, why is this person doing this? I loved something that Daryl told me a long time ago, and I've taken it and I love it. He says, why is it that we continually have the same battles? It's because we haven't conquered them. And they're going to keep coming back because it's a test, just like we heard in Job. We're in the middle of a test. Until you pass that test, God's not going to let you go any further, because you can't go any further until you conquer that part of your life. And if it takes a whole lifetime, well, then you might miss out, because all you keep doing is going back to that battle with whatever you're battling. But learn to allow God. And that's why Philippians 4:13 is so important. If you say this verse with confidence, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. When I was having to go get the jab, I was very nervous about it. And, it's a dangerous thing. The vaccination, I don't trust it. I did it because it was mandated. But I will tell you that I didn't like it. But what I was faced with, And then God kind of did something for me. He took me to Psalms chapter 91. I'm not going to go through it, but I found Psalms 91. So I started praying Psalms 91 over me. I just want to read one little part of it before I close out. And I'm saying this because it's part of battle. When I say prayer, and that's why, I said, and I opened up with, we need to be in prayer all the time. Because in battles, we have to be in prayer with God. We have to be in constant relationship, so we're in constant communication. But it says here in Psalms 91, this in verse 2, this I declare about the Lord, he alone is my refuge, my place of safety. He is my God, and I trust him. For he will rescue you from every trap and protect you from deadly disease. He will cover you with his feathers. He will shelter you with his wings. His faithful promises are your armor and protection. Do not be afraid of the terrors of the night, nor the arrow that flies in the day. Do not dread the disease that stalks in darkness, nor the disaster that strikes at midday. Though 1,000 fall at your side, though 10,000 are dying around you, these evils will not touch you. Just open your eyes and see how the wicked are punished. If you make the Lord your refuge, if you make the Most High your shelter, no evil will conquer you, no plague will come near your home, for he will order his angels to protect you wherever you go. They will hold you up with their hands, so you won't even hurt your foot on a stone. You will trample upon lions and cobras. You will crush fierce lions and serpents under your feet. The Lord says, I will rescue those who love me. I will protect those who trust in my name. When they call on me, I will answer. I will be with them in trouble. I will rescue and honor them. I will reward them with a long life and give them my salvation. That's Psalms 91. And, it wasn't like I was looking out there. God dropped that passage in my heart because I was going through a battle. And God said, you know what? I've got you. And I want to give you some encouragement. And so I bring this to you today. I'll type this. Now, I know that for some reason it doesn't allow me, but go to Psalms 91. Psalms 91. And just read the whole psalm. Make that as something that you go to when you're going through some troubles. When you're in the middle of that battle, and you're like, man, I'm just not having any peace here. A lot of times people will call me and they'll be like, hey, Brent, can you please pray for me for peace? I need some peace. Man, I'll pray with them. But here's the thing, you can do the same thing. I want you to understand that the enemy that you have is the enemy that's coming in, and he's taking away a part of you saying, you can't do this. Now, part of it's right. Part of it's truth. You can't do this on your own. You first of all need God. You need God to be a part of your life. The second thing is you need good people surrounding you. You need good people surrounding you. When I say good people, that doesn't mean they always agree with everything you say. Sometimes you need people that are going to say, I don't know about that, and give you sound advice. Those are two things that you absolutely have to have. Of course, you have to have a strong connection in the Word, and you have to have a strong prayer life. So if you have that, you'll be okay. You'll start seeing your enemy in a different vision. You won't see him as being the most powerful. Remember, it says he's like a roaring lion. He's not the roaring lion. We serve the lion. Folks, I love coming to you. I love coming to you every Saturday. There is no greater joy in my life. I've been really looking at my own life and planning it out. And I know we shouldn't do that, but we have to have goals. And I've been planning my life out. I've been saying, hey, you know what does my future look like? And I know I'm going to retire at probably the age of 62. And I've been thinking, because this coming up January, I'm actually going to do my January rejuvenation like I always do, but I'm taking a week off. But I'm really going to focus on writing in my books, because I've been writing these books and I just have never had the time. And Lisa said something the other day. She's like, are you ever going to finish those things? And I think in 2022 is when I'm going to finish them. And I'm going to use some of the stuff that I've been doing. I'm going to use this series right here as another book that I'm going to write, because I really think what I'm going to do after I retire is really focus on just doing what some of the great forefathers did. And that was, start writing down everything that we've gone through. But I'm going to do that before I turn 62. And I want to try to get them published. And I have people in my life. I mean, I'm going to say this because she's on here, but I'm going to tell you, one of the greatest writers I've ever met is Michelle. And she's a great friend of mine. And man, she can write. She has a talent and a skill that I've never seen before in any person. And, I know that when I write my book, I could give it to her and she'll read through it and she'll help me edit things. And we can make a great book. And I'll have these books out there that I'm not going to sell them for a lot of money. I'm thinking about putting them out on iTunes or whatever it is and selling them for like 99 cents. Because I'm not into it for the wealth. What I want is that people will take these and use them to better their life. That's why I love what Lee does. Lee Heineken is a very good friend of mine. And you know what? I love reading what he puts out there every single day, because what it does is it comes in and it hits you right where you need it. And it's because, man, we take what we have. You can get all these books. I have books up on my wall. I don't read them every day, but you know what? There's something I'll remember. Oh, I remember when I was reading this, and I'll go and I'll grab it. That's all I want to be able to do, is be able to say, hey, you know what? I want to write something that's going to go to someone, and that person's going to be able to take it and be able to use it to better their life. I'm not into becoming a millionaire. What I want is that people will become wealthy with knowing who they are. Because the enemy wants you to be depleted. He wants you to feel defeated. Every person that watches this, I want you to know you are strong. I was just telling Lisa a little bit ago, I joke about it, but one of my favorite movies is To Help. And she says something in there, and she says, you're smart, or let's see, you're kind, you're smart, and you're important. And if you continually say that to yourself, you cannot lose, because the enemy can't come against that. You're kind, you're smart, and you're important. And remember that. Father God, I come before you right now in the name of your son, Jesus. I thank you for all that you do. I thank you for constantly coming into our life when we need you the most and being that strength. Father God, I thank you that you are my refuge. I thank you that you are my safety place. Lord, I thank you for being my God. I thank you for giving me the strength that I need in the times of battle, but thank you for being that comfort when I'm in the moment of rest. I'd ask that you would be with each person that would watch or listen to this, that, Lord, that you would touch their life, that you remind them that even though the enemy is strong, you are stronger, and that you would give them what they need to stand strong in the moment of battle. Lord, I'd ask that you would be with all of those that we mentioned that are sick, that, Father God, that you would strengthen them up, that you'd bring them rest and bring their immune system to a place where they would defeat that sickness. Lord, I'd continue just to ask for our nation to be healed from the inside out, that you'd allow your church to rise up against the inadequacies, against the enemy, and say, we no longer will allow these things to be a part of your church. Lord, allow your church to be the voice in the wilderness. Allow your church to be the light in darkness. Allow your church to be the kindness that needs to be seen throughout the world. Lord, do a cleansing that would change the atmosphere, that your great awakening would take place, and that it would just resurrect what you want for our nation. I thank you and praise you for all that you do. Be with those traveling this week. Keep them safe. Allow them to have a great time of Thanksgiving with their family. Remind us of those things that we should and must be thankful for. We thank you, we praise you, and we give you all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Folks, I love you. I thank you. Have a great week. Happy Thanksgiving.